Ben, we've made it. People have gone through the entire season. They've set up their earth box, they've set up their pots, and it's now coming to a close.
Yeah.
What's going to go on next?
Yeah. Well, I'll say my welcome too. Welcome to our final video of the Kalamazoo Roots 2021 filming and future years as well. Today we're going to talk about preparing for the winter, cleaning up from the season, and what you can keep doing as the season progresses. So today we have the earth box. This is my earth box that I kept at my house. We had mostly herbs in it. These were basil plants. This was a cucumber plant. We had some beans in here as well. As you can see, they're all finished. So at this point, including a few dry beans here at the end.
Could they plant those again next year?
Yeah, if you have beans that dried, you could either cook these and eat these, although they'd be a pretty small meal, or you could save them for next year for planting. So at this point, what my cleanup is going to look like, I'm going to pull out any weeds that are growing in there. Here I had a little tree, another little tree. I want to keep as much soil in here as possible.
Can you reuse this soil?
Yeah, the soil you'll reuse in future years. If you end up losing some, you can add more to it. And I'm just kind of bouncing this on the ground to dislodge more of the soil. Got my bean plant, my other bean plant, and then I have a rosemary here, and rosemary is a perennial herb, and I'm actually going to leave it there. It'll be just fine.
Smells great.
I'm going to smooth the soil back out, taking out my old plant labels. And then I still have a little bit of fertilizer left over. You can also add any compost you have, or really anything else that's, I'll use the word organic, something that's life-based for it. Not a, if you add a synthetic fertilizer, it's just going to wash out over the winter. What you want is something that's a slower release. So I'm just sprinkling this over the surface, and then I'm going to scratch it in, because in our soil there are a lot of microbes. It's a living soil, and we want to keep them fed through the winter time so that come spring they are ready for the next crop to be going in. So I've integrated in. So at this point we could do some planting as well in preparation for next year. What do you think, Ben?
You know what? There are several things we can do. I have a couple of quick questions though. I noticed you were working in the tomato and the straw flower. Did you intend to work, or so
no, I had some flowers and cherry tomatoes that were still sitting in the container. Ben noted that I buried them in. It was not intentional. It doesn't hurt anything, but you can take them out as well.
But you also could possibly get something next year.
Yeah.
In theory, not necessarily in practice. So I've gotten tomatoes to volunteer the year after, but what will be probably most helpful if you want to grow something more and prepare for next year, you could leave your tomatoes in, but you can also do things like put in, this time of the year, put in garlic bulbs. And so you can buy them at your horticulture, or you can also, I've also gone to the grocery store and bought a bulb and divide it into individual cloves. And that's the word I was looking for, cloves. And I would space them about 4 inches apart, and they will overwinter fine. They kind of have like an antifreeze in the cells. But you still would want to shelter this, which Ben will talk about, but there's other plants that you can put in as well. So tulip bulbs, can they put in, what other, and you can eat tulips, by the way, the bulbs.
Crocuses, hyacinths, those would be nice crops where you could get some spring flowers, and then they will be finished by the time that you want to plant your vegetables in the summertime.
And what about watering? There's this point that you don't want to water when you're going to get a hard freeze. You don't want this to be completely
saturated.
Thank you. This is the day I need help. You know, I have my thinking hat on. It's also to celebrate you all, but yes. So what else, Ben?
So once you have your stuff planted and the soil is moist, you'll want to put it in a sheltered place. And the reason for that is because even for these bulbs, if they're out in the middle of your backyard where there's cold wind blowing from all sides, it will freeze it solid much quicker and also warm it up much faster. And those temperature fluctuations wouldn't be good for any bulbs in the ground. Also, the primary way that plastic degrades is from UV rays from the sun. And so if you have a sheltered place where it can be in the shade, that's just one way to prolong the life of your earth box over time, or any other plastic containers that you're using for growing. If you have clay or terracotta pots, you'll actually want to dump the soil out to prevent them from cracking over the winter time. But then there are other crops that you can also grow in the winter, or into the fall at least.
Right. So also the other thing that comes to mind about this is like my larger pots and grow boxes I actually bring into the garage or my shed. Long as it's, like you said, sheltered from the wind primarily. And I also try to shelter it. Once upon a time I sheltered it on the side of my garage, but I didn't think about the overhang, and came out and it was a frozen block of ice. So that's something to think about too when you are sheltering this.
So avoiding drip lines from structures.
Yeah. Live and learn. That's my motto. And get better and better each year. So in the pot here I actually have collard, and I have cabbage that I grew from a root. We were talking about that in one of the classes we did. And then we have some parsley. The neat thing about these plants is that they will take a freeze, frost, thaw, and if you're fortunate, you can actually have these last until the next season, and they'll continue to grow. But I also confess I like to eat them as much as possible. So I've been clipping like a leaf or so and adding it to my smoothies to get some extra nutrition, calcium. But these will continue growing until they're biennial. So they'll grow for 2 years if all conditions are right. Again, you'd want to shelter this from the weather, but in a perfect world, you'd also want to refresh the soil either by giving it additional nutrients or by changing the soil and repotting it. But I'm going to leave this in the pot, and probably in the spring is when I would repot this. I don't know about your experience with pot growing. Pot growing meaning the pot. But that would be the time that I would be most likely. And there's a little bit of a window that I've missed in the past where I let it go into like March or May, and by then the plant is it's taken so many of the nutrients out, it's kind of failed. But if I can replace the soil a little bit earlier, it just keeps going. So, and on top of that, if you let this go to bloom or blossom, if it's a 2-year-old plant, it will produce beautiful yellow flowers that will attract lots of beneficial insects. And you can still eat the leaves, but this is better, the better quality.
Thank you so much for participating this year. Yeah, we've done it. It's a full growing season. I hope you feel like you've learned a lot and you've grown in your gardening abilities. If you're not going to be using the earth box next year, whether if you're going to be not needing it because you're moving or if you're going to be upgrading, feel free to return it to the Food Innovation Center at 224 Crosstown. And if you do, then we'll just recycle it to other growers next season as well, because we're hoping to continue this program in the future. Thank you so much. We've enjoyed watching the Facebook page and seeing your comments, participating in the video calls, and it's been a lot of fun for us.
Amen. It's been wonderful, and it's great to have the collective knowledge of all the growers, and all of us develop more skill. And with each growing season and each effort, there's always an opportunity to learn more. So thank you so much for being involved with us and learning together and increasing your skill. So hopefully we'll see you, hear from you, and don't stop sending photos.
Thank you.
Thank you.